Okay, thanks everyone for being here. Today is August 20th, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. August 20th, 2020. And it's the High Priestess, number 14. So this is Day of the High Priestess, which is amazing that we're doing sigils. And feels like a really important part of divination. You know, part of like the practice of divination is tuning into what the voices that are coming from the inside and the outside in all directions, and then divining what is beneficial and helpful at this time. And so I just want to acknowledge Nada. Nada really, she posted a sigil that they use in Australia to pray for water. And that's what led to this class. We are going to do this a class again in the apprenticeship, but we're going to do a practice here today. So one of the things that's really important with so many things around magic as a term, ritual as a term, alchemy as a term, even witches as a term, it's so easy for these kinds of works to get very diluted and to almost be to the point where they lose their power and their magic because it's so diluted. And so what we want to do here is really come with like a high level of integrity in this ritual working that we're doing, and really care for what we're putting forward into practice and tend to it that way. And that's what makes it really useful and helpful, because everything that we do here is to be helpful, to be useful, to be beneficial. Like that's really primary and most important, that our lives are helpful, our lives make something good, our lives are useful for ourselves and for all our relations, especially the children. Okay, so we're going to go over sigils, and one thing I wanted to do, I just put together a couple different descriptions of sigils from various sources. There are lots of different kinds of sigils, and sigils are, there's like the old Western Hermetic tradition, the Western Hermetic tradition description of sigils, and there's more modern day styles of sigils. Some popular ones are like, we see them in logos like Nike or Disney, or Nike, Disney, Nasty Gal, like she actually has, I've used this example before. She said in sigils that like what made her business take off was sigils. Now, there's a lot to that. Logos in general are sigils, but are they infused with intention and magic and to be of benefit and to be of use? Because it's projecting a symbol into the cosmos, into the manifest world, and from an intention. And the practice that we're going to do today is coming from a prayer, like a very specific prayer that we have, that we can then turn into a symbol to then project that out into the field. Now, there are some of the Western Hermetic styles of sigils are very detailed, like you're working with the sigil to invoke an angel, or to make it on a magic square in a specific day, in a specific time, to work with a certain deity or divinity or energy to come around and support the ritual offering that's being made. And others have used that same technology in ways that are not necessarily so benevolent too. Some of the old stories is that sigils were used to control demons, to then build things. And so it's can be very detailed and powerful, which is why great care and how and why we're doing this is of utmost importance. Now, one of the, so sigils have gone through different phases and evolution and styles, and just like in the Western Hermetic magic tradition, where there's different threads of Kabbalah, and in the Jewish mystical tradition and the Christian mystical tradition, there's different threads and different functions and purposes. A style that we're doing is connected to Austin Osman Spare, and who's more in a different style of magic, where he talked a lot about the work of sigils is connected to our unconscious. It's building a bridge between our unconscious and our conscious. And so when we make, oh cool, are you doing the presentation? Perfect. Oh,
Just gonna
Okay.
works. We can keep talking.
Okay, and at some point, if we can put the presentation up, that would be great, because there's a couple of quotes that I'd love to put in there.
Cool. Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Oh, great. So that's the thing I can work with now?
Yep.
Oh, man, you're genius. Roxanne, genius tech. Okay, so if we can pull up the presentation of just a few little phrases I brought about from sigils.
Yes.
There's sigils, seals, and symbols. They're different. And they're connected, but they're different. And I actually asked William to do a class just on that. So I'm going to leave that for him because he's the one that taught me that in the first place. And what we are going to do is we're going to do one style of sigil craft, a very simple technique that is very popular. And this is not particularly an oracle sigil craft technique. We will be working in a new way in the future, but this one is a common one. So let's just go to can they see the presentation now? Awesome. I might just come a little closer so I can read out loud. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so can everyone see the presentation here? Oh, right, perfect. Can y'all see it? Thumbs up, anyone? Is that a yes?
Sonia, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thanks,
great.
Ruby.
Thank you. Okay, so how do I switch again? Oh, there.
Scroll.
Scroll. Okay, so this is something that came from Austin Osman Spare. I love his sigil craft work. He's one of many. Sigils are a means of symbolizing desire and giving it a form that prevents thought on that particular desire and allows it free passage to the subconsciousness. And then, this is something I wrote. Every moment we are creating, always setting something in motion by the very act of being a spirit in a body. Sometimes we are conscious and intentional of what we are creating, and sometimes we are manifesting without full awareness, and this is sometimes your subconscious mind at work. So how do we gain access and communicate with our subconscious? How do we arise our hidden desires into the conscious mind to manifest the beauty we want to see in the world? And one way is through sigil craft, which is what we're doing today. So this practice is developing intentional symbols that create a doorway between you and your subconscious mind. Images composed of letters that represent your desire, made through the distillation of a magical written intention into a symbol. And in that way, it hovers between the logical, mundane realms of the mind and the symbolic, magical realm of your subconscious. These are tools that shape and influence our ability to make manifest what we want to call in for our lives. Now, we're applying this to prayer. So in this class, we will set goals in the form of written intentions, and today, prayers that will be distilled into letters and finally into symbol. We'll then imprint and charge this symbol into our subconscious through very simple ritualistic practices, and as like mantras and induced states of gnosis. So that's what we're going to do today. We're applying it through prayer. Okay? So the word sigil in Latin, sigillum, means seal. Now, oftentimes sigils come from Western esoteric ceremonial magic traditions. And we're working, oh, I lost it. Oh, here we go. With this style. Now this is, when I spoke earlier of sometimes sigils are connected to calling upon angels or divinities or deities on making certain magical swears to call upon them.
We lost your voice.
Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, cool.
You're back on now.
You're back.
What's that?
You're back.
Oh, I'm back. Okay, great. So what we're doing here, we're not trying to control demons, angels, or any divinities or deities, which is a way that sigils were worked with in the past. And they are still worked with in that way. Specifically, if you want to work with the divinity, Venus energy, you know, we're not going to get into this technology because this will take many moons to review. But we are going to focus on how to control or direct our energy in the unconscious psyche of the individual operator. So we're controlling the forces in our unconscious psyche of each and every one of us as operators. So, and we're applying this to with the technology of prayer. Oh, I didn't put the other thing up there. I went across. I just scroll up. Is that what I do?
Scroll down.
Down. Oh no. Well, okay. I think that's clear. Okay. So this is a visual example of a sigil. Now this sigil comes from. This is a sigil of literally the Academy of Oracle Arts.
Okay, pause for 1 second.
Okay.
Ask if they can hear.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me back again?
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
So what we're doing here, this is an example of a sigil that I made, or that came through me from the Oracle. So this sigil is from for the Academy of Oracle Arts. So this is literally the phrase Academy of Oracle Arts distilled into a sigil. And so as we're building the school, that is the symbol that is working through me, my subconscious, my conscious, and my superconscious. It's like the sigil that I'm projecting out and learning from on the inside. It goes back and forth. So every time I see that symbol and that sigil, it connects me to that bridge between the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. I'm not trying to define it or remember how or what the process was. In a way, it's like almost like I forget about it. And some of the sigil practices is you make the sigil and then you forget about it. You don't even look at it that after a certain period of time, and you just let it do its work, because it goes into when you make it with your own heart, mind, body, and spirit. It's working inside and through us and doing that work between our conscious realms, subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. This is literally the Academy of Oracle Arts. And so I wanted to share with you an example of the style we're doing. There are many different styles, and they all have different functions and purposes. And this is one of the more easy, simplified sigil craft practices that pretty much anybody can do. But the deeper we go into this kind of magical working, the more technical it gets. And obviously, the more specific and technical when we do things with more specificity and technicality for specific intention, a purpose, a function, and an offering, there's all of these other life force, energy forces supporting that and moving forward, which is why we learn technicalities when we're doing these prayer technology works in relation to the sacred. Okay, so how this came up today. Okay, cool, we're back with the group. Right now, there's a lot to pray for, obviously. And let's just talk a little bit about prayer. Now, one of the things that there's prayer, even as a term, has, I don't like to think of it that way, but I see it sometimes it's been colonized. And that very relationship with our own heart, mind, body, and spirit, having an intimate connection with Creator and creation, has sometimes almost been colonized to the fact that people have stopped praying. And so part of what we love to do here is help people have their own humble, empowered nature back. We're like having a conversation with creation and building that relationship, because there's far more beings in the unseen realm that are because everything has a spirit, everything has a spirit, and we just don't necessarily see all the spirits, like example, plants and trees and animals and everything like that. We don't see it all the time, and but everything's alive. And so really, it's when we pray, we're building that relationship with the life force energy, the spirit, and in creation that's collaborating and manifesting all together. And prayer sometimes is just like sending prayers. And sometimes I write that too. And I'm like, well, what prayer am I sending? What does that actually mean when we're sending prayers, sending love and prayers? And I ask myself that when I text that, because I do text it sometimes, like sending prayers. And so here today, we're going to get really specific what prayer we're sending. Now, one thing that came up was like around water. and making a sigil for water, a symbol for water to project into creation. And that can be, sometimes that can be stronger than we understand, than we know. Like when we're making a projection, a prayer for water. It's like, well, what kind of water? And in what way? And how is that water? What is it, like a gentle rain? Is it a strong rain? Is it moisture? Is it like softening? Is it like calming? Like what? What do we mean by praying for water? And where are we praying for water to go? Or are we praying for the water in our body? Or are we praying from the rain, for the gentle rain? Are we praying for what exactly are we talking about? And when we make a prayer like that, we make a sigil, it's also like to allow because we're making an offering. We're not trying to tell the natural forces what to do. We're making an offering and a humble request in humility, trusting that the natural world knows best. We're not trying to meddle with creation in a way and try to manipulate it in a way that because sometimes our own personal opinion of what should be done or needs to happen may not be accurate to what the entire ecosystem feels is best. And so in that way, we're not trying to meddle in anything. We're simply and humbly making an offering for the benefit of all beings and trusting that creation will help take care of that. And that we're just putting our energy and our time and our life force energy in service to that. And it's a very important distinction. Like sometimes I've utilized this example often because it blew my mind. I have been a part of calling in lightning storm in ritual classes, and then in all of its different parts, and then how to separate them in their different parts so it doesn't become too detrimental to the rest of the land. And so we do have that kind of relation and power with the right ritual and technologies, but we don't want to meddle in business we don't understand. Because sometimes when we start to become more empowered with our own creative technologies in nature, each and every one of us as creators, sometimes the ego can get super tricky and think the ego thinks they know what's going on. But we're just like kids here, really, like from the time our species has been on this planet post-flood is pretty small in comparison to like the lifespan of this planet. So it's important, I think, to take note of that we're kids, and so we just want to make a good offering. So the sigil that we're doing today, this prayer sigil, is an offering, and we leave it up to creation and the majesty of creation to know how to be nourished by that offering in the way that they know best. So is everyone clear? That's what we're doing? Can get some hand raised scenarios, just so I feel like we're clear on this, okay? Now, oftentimes, before we get into the technologies, because we're going to get right into it because it takes some time, sigils are used oftentimes to, like we talked about, logos for businesses, like the Academy of Oracle Arts. Now, what I find, for me in any ways, important about when we're making a symbol is the intention and the prayer behind it, which is why I like this particular technology, because we're actually working with the power of letters. Because the power of the word is the voice and the vibration that makes the word, and then that word has more manifestation, another layer of manifestation when it's broken down into letters. Utilizing our hands to write it. So we tune in, we work with our imagination, we tune into our heart, mind, body, and spirit, and the prayer that is ours to offer. Like we're not all necessarily, unless we can agree within 5 minutes what our group prayer is, or we do our individual prayer that we know we can tend to. Because the prayer that I'm going to make is something that I know I can tend to. When we make a prayer for our lives or make a prayer offering to this time, we got to tend to it too. It's not just like, this thing that's just wherever. We got to stay behind our prayers and take care of them. And so it's like, how do we take care of this prayer we're setting in motion on a daily basis is part of it. So if we all can align in one collective prayer and we'll have a timeline of 5 minutes, we can do that and make one sigil for that. Or maybe we'll see if we have time for that at the end. But the first thing we're going to do is each do a sigil that is our prayer that we can tend to. And then if we have time at the end, we'll do one group one. I think that's the best thing to do. Okay, so prayer is aligning will with the will of the divine. You know, there's many ways, there's many definitions of prayer, but that's one of them today. We're aligning our will with the will of the divine, and we're building that intimate relation with creation to make this sigil as an offering to nourish and be food to support blossoming consciousness in some fashion. You know, we can speak to it in a few different ways, but that's how I'm speaking to it now. So something I've been thinking a lot about in the last couple days is what exactly are my prayers right now in relationship to what's happening? You know, and when my partner, or Carter, and I were sitting here, one of the prayers we were just discussing was like, still winds. Mm-hmm. Still winds, and the calming of the fire to completion, and a humble courtship towards the blessing of the rain to nourish the lands, and to offer that forward. And that's something that I spoke out loud. So the reason I'm bringing that up as an example is it's very specific. So I know when I'm praying that, like, when I prayed for that the other day, I can connect to the wind that way. Still winds. And so grandmother winds, just humbly like connecting to the stillness of the winds. And then with grandfather fire, humbly connecting to the calming of the fire to completion. You know, and then with the rain, courting in a humble way the blessing of the rain to give the earth a drink. You know, and for me, I chose a very specific region to focus that, because sometimes if prayers are like out there wherever, which is also helpful too, because sometimes it's going into the grid, right, the web of consciousness, it's a lot of space to cover. It's a lot of area to cover. And I believe in miracles, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm 100% on board with miracles, and I have faith in miracles, but it's just a lot of area to cover. So at least I can focus this area. Like, I started with, when that, for a particular prayer, it was focused around my home, our neighborhood, and then I started imagining Ayla's neighborhood, Lucas's neighborhood, and just building the locality of that prayer, and then as it, seeing the rippling effect as it grows. That's how I like to do it, and I just want to offer that to each and every you, because that's something I know I can tend to in my own imagination and in my consciousness. Like, I know where I'm directing it, you know, and then trusting that the ripple that it's making from that offering can keep going farther and farther. And so then yesterday I talked to some friends in Sebastopol, and they were telling me where they were and the fires that were around them. And so then I could direct that exact prayer over there. And in my prayer, I just directed it there and offered it there. So I just want to offer that as something to consider as you wish. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into a meditative state in a second, and then write our prayer. Write it down, because then it moves from the imagination into physical form. And then speak it. So that we're working with tone, vibration, the letters, and the writing. And then now, if your prayer is really long, it's going to take a long time, A, to write it, B, to say it, and 3, to make a sigil, just so you know. And it's probably going to be harder to remember. Because part of the what I'm learning anyways in this work is the more clear and simple my prayer is, the more I can tend to it and care for it, and I can remember. And so that same prayer I spoke of earlier, I applied it to one neighborhood, and now I can apply that prayer to this neighborhood and apply that prayer over here, because I know exactly what I prayed for, and I'm clear about it. Now, it can change too. It's not like forever, you know, like it's as long as you infuse your energy into this particular prayer. Okay, so are there any questions before we go into the meditation on our prayer here? Pen and paper. Yeah. Any questions in the group? Does everyone feel clear? Okay.
Amrita has a question.
Oh yeah, go for it.
How do you tend to the example of the prayer that you just made each day?
So great question. The way that I tend to it is I speak it. And what we're going to do right now, today, is we're going to build a sigil. So then with the sigil, and we'll go through some ways that you can work with it. You can put it on your altar. I'll talk about how you can work on it talismanically. And then you can project the sigil itself into that region or area or prayer or way to tend to that. We're going to do one practice too, because part of sigil work is you make the sigil and then you activate it by going into a trance-like state. And then it starts to move into multiple realms, like a gnosis. And then from there, it's inside of you, and then you can, in working in multiple realms, and then we can project it to places. So we'll get to that. It's a great question. Okay, any other questions before we move into the honing in our prayer? Okay. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to make an offering first. I want to just offer some of this frankincense to each and every one of you, all of our benevolent guides, ancestors, and allies that all brought us together in this particular configuration on this particular day of the High Priestess to connect into the infinite light source energy that comes from where we come from and that is available to us. The infinite light source energy, the Sophia energy, to support us in becoming clear vessels and instruments for these prayers that are offerings that are helpful and useful and beneficial, to bring them here in this physical world that way. And that way I want to say thank you to each and every one of our highest selves and our councils with our benevolent guides, ancestors, and allies for really coming together here at this time. It's really a powerful time in our human story, and really believe and trust and have undeviating faith, like total faith in what each and every one of us are doing here as an offering that is nourishment and food to the earth, really. And in that way, just celebrating how each and every one of us really knows exactly how to tend to it, and that we're just remembering again, and by coming into council today, we uplift each other that way to humbly come to our stations and tend to these prayers we are setting in motion with these sigils. So here's some frankincense for everybody. Just like that. And even from here, and then even on the Zoom, we can just go out and receive it. Thank you for showing up for this. Okay. So I'm just going to invite each and every one of us to just sit up for a moment and close our eyes, and very quickly just like tap in, tune in, turn on, like Abraham Hicks says. You know, humbly sit up in our station. Humbly give gratitude and thanks for choosing to make this symbol, this sigil, as an offering. And in this moment with, as each and every one of us gets this time, these few minutes in our interior temple, to really tune into exactly what our prayer is. A prayer that we can tend to, that we can care for, that is helpful and beneficial and supportive at this time. She's going to take a few minutes in silence to just tune in. And then when I say please open your eyes, you can go ahead and write it down. So tuning in total silence. Really, really clear. Okay. Go ahead and open your eyes and go ahead and write your prayer down. Okay, so now with your prayer, we're going to write the prayer in all capital letters as one long sentence. So every word next to every word, like one long sentence in capital letters. So write it again, once again, in all capital letters in one long sentence. Okay, great. And now go ahead and cross out the first written prayer. Just like, you know, scribble it out, your first prayer. So all you have is the capitals now. So you just scribble out the first prayer. So the only thing that remains is the capitals in one long sentence.
Hi, sis, I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a little bit confused. Okay, so we're writing out our prayers and then we cross out our prayer?
So
Like, so
you,
we
the
have a
first,
sentence?
yeah, so thank you for asking that. For the first prayer that you wrote, right out of meditation, the second step is you write that prayer again in all capitals in one long sentence. So thank you for asking the clarification. So then you scribble out the first prayer you wrote right after meditation. Scribble it out entirely. So now you just have the second time you wrote that prayer in all capitals, one long sentence. Does that make sense? Okay, awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. I appreciate that. So if I'm not clear, please ask me to be clear. I want to make sure everyone really gets what we're doing here. Okay, cool. So the next step, because what we're doing right now is we're distilling. It's like going through a distillation process. We're shifting it from something that we can see written into now one long code. This is one style of sigil craft. So now there's one long code. And now with this one long code, we cross out there's some sigil traditions you cross out all the vowels, some you don't. But for this one, per Nada's initial prayer, so I'm following a thread of a prayer, we are going to cross out the vowels. So go ahead and cross out every single vowel in your one long sentence, your code. This is one style. Again, there's many styles. So just the vowels, cross them out. Okay. So no vowels are visible now, and all we see is consonants. So now we're going to do this technique where we're going to cross out every double and third and fourth and fifth and sixth letter. So only one letter of each of the letters exists. So let's say I have like 5 L's in my code. I'm going to cross out the second L, the third L, the fourth L, and the fifth L. So the only L that's remaining is the first L. And that applies to every letter. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? I'll say that one more time. So the next part that we're going to work on our code is we're going to cross out every second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth letter of a letter. So if I have 5 L's, if I have 5 L's, I'm going to leave the first L remaining, and I'm going to cross out L number 2, L number 3, L number 4, L number 5. So the only L that remains is the first one. Is that clear, or are there any questions about that?
What if there's only 2?
Then you just keep the first one and then you cross out the second. You basically the only thing that's remained is one of each letter. The number one of each of the letters. So again, only all that remains is one of each of the letter. Let's go make sure I don't have any questions here. Oops. Shoot. Sorry. Here we go. I'm gonna pull down the messages and see. Can someone repeat that for me? You missed the simplification. Oh yeah. Dana, do you mind asking your question one more time, like what you mean?
So how do I bring the fuller prayer that I felt into a condensed version? How did
So
you
you,
guide?
yeah, so what you want to do is into simple, concise words that is a prayer that you can tend to. So like for me, it was still winds, fire calmed completely out, loving, nourishing rain for California. And so I was just like really specific on that. And then from there, you write it out entirely. Did you hear the crossing of the vowels and the double letters too?
Got that.
Okay, and you got all this part too, where it goes into one code?
Okay. Just put it into one. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and then you cross out the initial pair, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, Roxy, this is awesome. So now what you do is your remaining letters, you now write in one line like a code. So now you make another line and you just put those remaining letters in one code. Capitals. Just like that. Is that clear for everyone? Okay. Then now you cross out the top. So now you just have these remaining letters and you cross out everything else just like we did. So cool, Roxy.
I know, I'm not excited. I'm so sorry about that.
Nice. No double. Family technology. Okay, so is there anyone that needs some more time? I want to wait till everyone's done before we go to the next step. Okay, we'll wait like another minute. I'll use this time to go to the bathroom and then we're going to do the next step.
Roxy,
Yeah?
for this first prayer, we're doing a collective prayer, or is this a prayer for ourselves?
Just a prayer for yourself. Or
Okay,
for whatever
sweet,
you
thank
feel like
you.
needs a prayer right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I actually just wrote down Isis's, not my own, when I did this one on the screen share. I just wrote down a quick version of Isis's to show you guys.
All right. Everyone complete?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So now, there are a lot of different ways we can go from here. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one simple way. This is one style. Once again, this is one style. There are many different styles and ways to do this. So what we're going to start is great, Roxy. What Roxy's doing, you have each of the letters up, then draw one vertical line from the north to the south. This is going to be your axis, or south to north. So this is your axis line. Now, basically what you're going to do is draw all of the letters on this axis line. I think it went back. south up top, north below.
That's what you taught me, so
Oh, for the,
I'm doing it. But
oh,
yeah,
you're doing it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. There's so many planes of
should've
where
known.
north and south are, and depending on what ritual we're doing. So now we're going to draw the letters on this axis. There's a lot of ways you can draw letters. There's different ways to do this depending on the ritual. For the context of this ritual, I'm going to, oh, awesome. Yeah, okay, cool. This is so fun. This is my very first time doing
You can just
this.
take
Oh, okay. Thanks, Roxy. So remember that one of the technologies is when we're moving this way, spiral, we're moving in a sunwise motion. It's like clockwise, sunwise, moving in that direction. It's one style. Other styles is you're going backwards, you're going counter. How do I erase things? Do I go
Just do the little back arrow.
back arrow?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So for the context of this particular prayer, the path moving forward, I'm going to suggest we move in a drawing clockwise motion. Okay? Now, what does that mean? And then I'm also going to suggest for the context of this prayer we're doing that we move from down to up in a clockwise motion. Okay? So, how does that look? Here's your axis. From down, just like Roxy drew it, down to up. This is your axis. Now I'm going to draw the R. You can do capitals, you can do lowercase if you want. You can also, it's up to you. You can do any of those. I'm going to do more capitals in this context for now. So I'm going to draw the R next. Like that. Then I'm going to draw down, up. I'm going to draw the N. So different drawing on this.
Yeah.
Whoa, it's really wild. I'm going to draw the end. You see how I'm drawing from down to up?
Why do you do from down to up?
Because I'm raising the vibration up.
Cool.
Raising the vibration up and moving in a clockwise motion to make this offering for the path moving forward. So I'm going down to up
On all of them?
on all of them. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go down to up. I'm just using an example. You can cross a letter too, like my F went this way. I'm going to do my C this way. It's all on this axis moving down to up. And then I'm going to work with this L again, the F and the L. So there's an example of the first part of your sigil. Is everyone clear? Do you have any questions? Okay, cool. So I'm going to peep this up and now I'm going to do mine. This is not your final sigil though. This is the first part of it. So when you're complete with this and you complete every letter, cross out the letter. So we're not leaving any, we're cleaning up our tracks. We're not leaving anything behind. We're cleaning up our tracks. You know what I'm saying?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we go from like right to left? Like when you did this C, that was kind of when you're going towards the left side? Because it's always down from up.
Yeah, clockwise, sunwise.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm. But you can start on the left side of your axis point too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great question.
Thanks.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I was also kind of just imagining making a sigil in Arabic. However, Arabic is from right to left, which is not clockwise. Do you have any suggestions for that?
I think that's a great question. I feel like trust how you feel like you would fulfill that part of the practice in the language you're meant to you do it in. Like if you know your intention is to raise a vibration and make an offering for the path moving forward, just knowing that that's what you're doing and however it's meant to work for you. It's a great question.
Okay, thank you.
Good one. Learn so much every day.
Hey, Isis is I just chimed in from Australia. Hello.
Hi.
Hiya. So if I'm writing my self prayer, it's just taking out like the vowel, like A, E, I, O, U. Is that right?
Take out all the vowels and all the doubles, triples. Like if you have 5 L's,
Cool.
reduce it to take out the second, third, fourth, and fifth L's to just the first L.
Sure. Awesome. Thank
And
you.
then write it out in capitals like a code.
Sure.
And then make sure you cross out your tracks
Yeah.
along the way.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming from Oz.
Yay, love you.
Oh, sorry. So if we have 2 or if we have 3 L's, we would just keep 1 out of the 3 L's.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is there like a specific reason or meaning to why we take out all the vowels?
Yes. So in some traditions, again, there's a lot of different styles. Some traditions, the vowels are so sacred, like just so sacred that we honor them that way. Like in the Hebrew language, there's many ways. It's sure should talk about this really, but when you're writing the letters, when you add a vowel, it adds a slightly different meaning, and those meanings correlate. And so the vowels are some traditions considered to be so sacred that we honor them by not by letting them be in a lot of ways. Now again, this is following one style. Not all styles of sigils go like this. I'm just following a prayer that Nada set in motion. This is why we're doing this. Okay, so we're going to go a few more minutes and then we're going to complete because we have another part that we do after this. There was a period where when I first started getting into sigils, I would make a sigil once a day for a friend to honor their life and honor my relation with them. And so I still have it actually. I have a book of sigils that I made for all the people that were every day of my life for a long time that were really helping me or like inspired me. So the reason why I bring that up is that's another way you can do sigils is if you just want to celebrate like a baby being born or someone you love and you just want to make this for them to honor
I have
them.
a question.
Yeah.
Are the letters supposed to be from top to bottom? Or do they need to be?
They can be anywhere. Great
Okay,
question.
Great.
The letters can be anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be from top to bottom. I'm really glad you asked that. They can be wherever on your axis point.
And then can you have like one letter that's attached to axis point and attach another letter to the axis point? Or
Yeah.
the letter
Yes.
always okay.
Yep, absolutely. They can overlap, interact with each other. Sometimes you might see like a C that fits, if you just add this little section, then it makes a G. And the C and the G are in the same. So yeah, great questions. Okay, a few more minutes, and then we're going to move on because we have some more steps to do.
Hey y'all, I just have a bit of a testimonial.
Yeah, can you speak up? I can't hear you.
Oh shit, it's my headphones. I'll type it.
We can hear you. Just speak up.
Okay, hey, this is Rowan. I just wanted to say that last time we did this sigil class, I don't remember when it was, like in the spring sometime. I was still living in Louisiana, and my sigil was to move to Nevada City, and I'm here.
What?
So just thought that was
Yes! That's awesome. I'm so glad you shared that. How do I start writing on this?
Touch the end so the blue light will come on.
Okay, so remember, after you do your letter, you want to cross out like this. Does everyone see that? So we're leaving no trace. Leave no trace. Burning Man got that from Sigil Craft.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, I'm having a hard time, for example, with a W. Like, would I just start at one of the bottom points and then go up and then down and then come back again?
Yep, exactly. Great question.
Okay.
Question about W. So start from the bottom up, and again, start from the bottom up. Great question. Yeah, because and really it's however what it feels like for you, raising the vibration, and then also supporting the path moving forward. Like that's ultimately where we're coming from here. Okay.
Let me ask one more question.
Yep. Yeah.
With horizontal lines, do we go left to right or right to left?
It's either here in this context.
Okay.
Some sigils, depending on the person, tradition, the intention, why, etc. Sometimes it will be just to one direction. Depends on the magical working and how you want to fulfill that magical practice. But in this context, it can go either way. Some sigil.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Sorry. For some reason, I'm second guessing myself to like whatever I already drew. Do you ever go back and like try it again, or just go ahead and scribble out the original letters?
Well, we're going to do the second part of it, which is probably why you're second guessing it, because we still have another part to it. So, which is great, because we're about to do a process of refinement.
Okay.
Yep. So right in line for the next part, which is awesome. Okay, so, wait, what was I going to say before that real quick? It was, oh, well, whatever, it's gone. So now what we're going to do is you're going to look at your sigil that you wrote, and you know that point in the mind's eye where you like, you look at the tip of your nose, and then when you look at the tip of your nose, all of a sudden you start to see double. And then when you see double, it's like right now I'm looking at the tip of my nose and I see 4 crystal balls. You see double, you see multiple. You're moving, that's moving into the threshold, the interdimensional realms of this magical working. So now go ahead and gaze at your sigil from starting at the tip of your nose. And then just gaze at it for a moment. You'll see double. And just let it interact with you that way. And you interact with it that way. And then now, you address your sigil and you start to refine it. So what I'm going to use, I'm going to show this as an example. Turning on. So now in this process, it's a little hard to draw with this. It's like a totally different experience. You start to refine the sigil.
It's not showing on the screen.
Oh, it's not? Is it not showing? What I'm doing right now. Oh, you can. Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, she's just going over it.
So what I'm doing is I'm going over now, and I'm refining the sigil. Inspired by the mind's eye that I did.
Oh, okay.
Now you can even, so different drawing on this, like a totally different experience. So thank you everyone for your patience with me. I've never done this before. This way.
Excuse me?
So,
Is there a question?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, I'm Joe. Would I be able to use a thicker pen to be able to, make it better?
yeah, you can use whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Hi Joe, welcome.
Thank you,
This
guys.
is totally for you because this is yours. However you want to do it.
Because
I've done
I used a different pen before, but to make it look better and make it round, I thought like if I would be able to use a thicker pen.
That's a great idea. Love it. Go for it.
I have a question, Isis. I thought I had a simple, but it ended up being 11 letters. So the sigil is quite full with all the letters. Should I keep going with that?
Yeah.
So
Go with it.
11. Okay.
Absolutely go with it because you're going to do like what I'm showing you right now, which is, like I said, challenging with this thing I'm doing. I'm learning. I'm now even refining it more because we're going to learn another practice that goes with this. So now I'm refining it even more from what just was. Do you see what's going on here?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm actually simplifying even more my sigil. So now I'm going to now cross all this out because I'm going to erase my tracks. Nobody saw my tracks, leaving no trace. I don't even see my own tracks, nobody meaning me. So then I erase my tracks, and now this is the sigil. This is actually technically not my sigil, but this is the sigil. Why do you erase your tracks? Great question, Sonia. The reason why you erase your tracks is part of this is like we're not trying to, like, it's almost like we're letting it go. We're letting it be free to do its thing. We're not trying to hold on to it, remember exactly what we did, how we did it, all the steps. We're allowing the sigil to be free to do its thing. It's like a liberating technology. And then also, so it doesn't have, it's not cord connected to all the different stages. We're releasing all of the cords of the process. We're freeing it up. And then it's almost to the point where we forgot. We forgot what we did. And now we're just letting the sigil do what it's here to do. Releasing the attachment to it. Okay, so now I'm going to do my sigil because this is technically not mine. Well, it's not my prayer, but it was an example. And while I'm doing mine, do we have any questions?
Can you explain the eye gazing thing again?
Yeah, totally. So start by like sitting up and then look at the tip of your nose. And then when you look at the tip of your nose, there's this place where the eyes can start to relax into seeing double. And then when you relax into seeing double, put the sigil in front of you. So you start to see two of them. And just building that relationship with it for a moment, where it starts to move into the subconscious, conscious, superconscious. It starts to go into those threshold places. Does that make sense? Was that helpful? Do you have any more questions about it? Do you see it?
That is so cool.
No, it's a really fun thing. We're going to do it again.
So then after I can see them double, then what?
Then after you see it double, then you refine your sigil. from the first one you drew, the first picture you drew. After you see double, then you go back to it, you refine it, and then we're going to do it again, and then we're going to infuse it and give it life force energy through a trance-like practice. So then it infuses the sigil to give it energy.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If you were wanting to create a sigil for like a group intention, like Laura and I have talked about making some together. I'm just wondering how you would do that, like collectively. Would you? Yeah. How would you?
What's that?
How would you go about that process?
So there's a couple different ways to do it. I've done sigil group working where, I mean, I guess how many people are you talking about to start with?
Start with 2.
2. Okay, great. So, all right, is it for prayer or what's it for?
We wanted to make one for House of Origins.
Okay, great. So, one way you can do it, and I've actually done like Zoom, or not Zoom, but what do you call it? Web, I don't know, graphic, I don't know, through the internet thing, where you draw a sigil, where you basically, each person draws each letter sequentially.
Ah.
So like you could do H, and she, Laura could, I don't know if you choose to do no vowels or vowels, Laura could do S.
Cool.
All the way. That's one way you can do it. You take turns drawing the letters.
Awesome. That's a great insight. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Okay, so now, everyone complete? Anyone need a couple more minutes?
I'm just having a hard time like condensing into a more like
graphic.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a lot of letters in mine still.
That's okay. Keep going. So, how do I go back to the slideshow? Dana, I'm going to show you an example of one that had a lot of letters that came into one. So it's like you can be as complex or simple as you want, just so you know. It's yours. So this is, believe it or not, Academy of Oracle Arts into one sigil. It's a lot of letters. So that went through a consistent series and process of distillation refinement to get to that. But it can get to that, you can go that simple also. Now, obviously, this went through many different stages ritually to get to it. But sometimes it could be like where you write all the letters, right? Like, let's say you have 20 letters. Well, there's not 20. How many vowels are there?
I should know that.
A, E, I, O, U. 5 vowels. So there's 21 consonants, right? Like, what if you had like 21 consonants there, You could write them all out, do your double vision, and you might only see 5 or 6 lines for a moment. Oh. You can actually just be that simplified with it. And it could go through a process of refinement over time. This sigil went through a process of refinement over time. From many, many letters to this. Did that help, Dana?
So sorry, I got kicked off right when you did that whole explanation. I just came back.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying is you can keep going through a consistent, regular process of refinement, but one of the things you can do is continue back to your mind's eye practice, where you might only see like 4 or 5 strokes, even though there's 21 consonants in there. And those 4 or 5 strokes emerge in your consciousness.
Awesome. Okay. So you can refine it around intuition of which ones are popping out.
Yeah. Exactly. You can keep distilling and distilling. That's what this one went through. It's a great question. Any other questions before we move on? Escape. Excellent. Yeah, right. How do I get back? Where do you need to go to? Oh no, I think I remember.
Stop screen share.
Oh, shoot. Stop. Did this before.
Do you want to be done?
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, right there. Great. Okay. Okay. So any other questions before we go to the next step? Okay. So now I would recommend drawing a circle, a magic circle around your sigil. You don't have to do this. I just like to. Or, you know, however you want. It can be elongated. It can be like an oval. It can be like a round circle. You're just like magical container. I like to do that. This is not like a have to. Some people are like, don't contain it in the circle. Some people are like, put it in the circle. Contain it in the circle. You know what I mean? It's just like however you think of it is what it's going to be. So for me, I'm like, okay, this is it's in its magic circle now. Okay. Wow, 4:22 is amazing. It was so fast. Okay, so now what we're going to do, the same thing. With your third eye, mind's eye, you're going to gaze at your sigil. So whenever you like look at the tip of your nose to start, find the double, and then start to look at your sigil that way. Okay. So what this is doing, and do your best to stay with it, is again, it's basically riding the bridge between the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious, building the relationship with the prayer that's become the sigil, that's become how one individual chooses to project that prayer into the field as an offering, as a food, as nourishment. Freeing the sigil too, and liberating to do what it wants to do. Okay, and then go ahead and close your eyes. Just allowing the sigil to enter in. So then now what we're going to do, and go ahead and open your eyes, actually, go ahead and open your eyes. Now what we're going to do is a very simple breath practice to open up the trance state to infuse the sigil. Now there are many ways to do this. This is where sex magic comes in. This is a very powerful sex practice. Nada brought it up, where you put the sigil in front and you make love with yourself or with another, and you give that energy, infuse the energy of the sigil with that. Another one is exercise. You can do like jumping jacks until you are in it, staring at your sigil. Another one is a breathwork practice. Anything that induces that trance-like state that charges the sigil. That is what the intention is here to do. Now, we're obviously not going to like all masturbate in class today to infuse it. However, you can at home, because this is your sigil you're going to be working with. So whatever you want to do to continue to infuse the sigil is you can keep practicing with it. What we're going to do today is Chandra here?
No.
She had to go.
Yeah, I think she was here earlier.
She was here earlier. Okay.
Fire things.
What we are going to do is we're going to do just a simple breath practice. And then with the breath practice, if you can, have your sigil up and stare at it. And then you're going to infuse the energy that way. We'll do 3 minutes. So if you can, put the sigil in front of you, put it up. And we're just going to do a simple, I was going to ask Chandra to lead it. She's a Kundalini teacher, but she had to go. we're just do a super simple breath practice. And when you do it, your focal point is going to be your sigil. So we'll do 3 minutes of a really simple one. And again, there's a lot of ways this can be done. So the one that we'll do is you put your hands down on your legs like this, and when you inhale your heart forward, you exhale back, inhale forward, exhale back, inhale forward, exhale back, and you keep doing that. We'll do it for 3 minutes, and then when the 3 minute is complete, I'll say rest, and then rest and just gaze at the sigil. I did this I did a class with 10 and 12-year-olds, and we made sigils and we did Kundalini together. It was so amazing. It was so precious. They loved it. So that was the last time we did this. So I'm excited. It makes me think of them. So Creator bless all of them. Okay, so everyone ready? Put your sigil in front of you. Simple practice again. Inhale, heart forward, exhale back. Inhale forward, exhale back. Remember, stare at your sigil, do the breath practice, and then when I say rest, rest and just gaze. And begin. Okay, inhale up, hold and gaze. Exhale, rest and gaze. Inhale up, hold, gaze. Exhale, rest, gazing. Inhale up, hold. Exhale, rest. Okay, continuing the gaze. Go ahead and bring your arms up. You can look at my hands if you need and bring your fingers and your thumb out this angle, and then we're going to do breath of fire, gazing at our sigils. And we're just going to do 2 minutes. Inhale, arms up. Thumbs touching, release the fingers. Hold. Gazing at your sigil. Exhale, caressing your aura while gazing at your sigil, bringing your arms down. Gaze at your sigil again. Rest, relax, and then close your eyes. And allow it to receive the sigil. Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. All right. So that's the step in infusing life force energy into your sigil. Okay. So next, the next thing that you do, or if you choose, is you can put this sigil on your altar and do whatever practice you want to do to keep infusing the life force energy towards it. And another thing you can do one way is with lemon water. Choose a necklace or a stone or something that represents a talisman for you, and with your 2 fire fingers, your right hand, you're pointing your middle finger. You dip it into the lemon water and you draw the sigil that you made on this stone or this necklace, and then you wear it, and then you project it out into the field, or you hold it in your recording store and it's recorded and you carry it. And so in this way, if there's a particular way that you want to send that sigil like a particular place or a person. Like if you're making a sigil for a person as an offering for them, or however, of course, with if they're one thing, if you're going to make a sigil for someone, make sure they're comfortable with it. It's very important. If you're going to make a sigil for someone and you want to project it, make sure you get permission. That's very, very important. For this one is like, this prayer I have, it's a sigil that I can send to an area or a region, as an offering. Now, the thing that's also important about sigils is knowing when that sigil is complete. It's some sigils are, like this Academy of Oracle Arts sigil that you saw, that is made to be a sigil for the legacy of the Academy as long as it wants to go. And I know that that's what it's for. And it's like almost like a beam, a light beam, Where for this one, like my particular prayer, I'm going to use this sigil until this process is complete, that this dynamic we're navigating in California. Because I made this for California. When this is complete, I'm then going to either bury the sigil, or burn it, and then cleanse, if I choose to put it on a talisman or recording stone, cleanse it with salt water under the moon. So it's complete. So I know that is complete. And then if there's another moment where it feels like it's time to make another one for a specific reason or something like that, then make another one. But it's, it's sometimes, if we have like 10 sigils going or 20 sigils going, it's a lot of energy to carry and tend to. You know what I mean? So it's nice and helpful if we just only are tending to a few. I'm an example of that. Sometimes it's I've gone too far, and then I've gotten really pretty exhausted from it, because we're tending to a prayer, especially when it's a prayer. Okay, so there's the basic steps. Does anybody have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you're doing the cultivation, like when you're meditating with it or doing breath work, are you intentionally remembering like what the prayer was and also holding that prayer in your mind's eye, or do you just become kind of like a blank canvas and focus on the symbol itself?
Great question. Blank canvas and focus on the symbol itself, because now the symbol carries the prayer. So like, it's a great question. And this is where it's a little different. Like sometimes like prayer has a specific function, and you remember that prayer word for word, and then this is a prayer that's going into a symbol, that it's the symbol that we send that carries that prayer. The essence of it, exactly. The essence of the prayer.
Cool.
And so in that way, if there's a moment like, this area or region is having a moment, then I'll just send the sigil there. And it can be quick like that. And this is why the trance-like practice is very helpful, to infuse the life force energy into it. So it's like it has life, and then when it needs to move, we can send it. So it's not like it's like a dead energy. It's alive, giving it energy. Great question. Any other questions?
I've got one.
Yeah.
Well, I just drew one in my journal.
Cool.
But I'd like to replicate it and put it on other pieces of paper and paint it. Would I want to energize and sort of activate each separate one at a separate time, or should I just kind of go with the one that I put in my journal and put that on my altar, since that one's sort of like the original?
It's up to you. Like if you're gonna maybe draw like 4 or 5 of the same one in different places, I would probably just focus on the journal so it can infuse all of them. But
Okay.
but whatever feels best for you, really.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool.
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So, how do we tend to it on the altar on daily basis? Like, what do I do on daily basis if it's on my altar?
You can gaze at it, meditate with it, do a breath practice, do an exercise, masturbate, have sex, whatever you want to do to work with it. The mind's eye practice is really helpful, I find, to just like focus on the nose and then gaze and let it double itself and then work inside. But sitting with it, I think, is really the simplest way, even if it's for like 5 seconds, just even gazing upon it. But if you feel like, okay, I need to like give it some life force energy, that's where one of those trance-like practices can be very helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Great question.
I just wanted to say about the infusing of talismans. Actually, I'm remembering as we are doing this class right now that last time we did this, I made a sigil and I infused it on this necklace. And when I got to Colorado, like the day I got here, the necklace broke. It like got caught on something and pulled off my neck. And I was like, whoa, like a cycle just like came to completion. I wonder like what that was. And I forgot that I infused it with the sigil and never
Wow.
like cleared it off.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm realizing that I think that's what came to a completion was that prayer. Or like, yeah, it was integrated.
Wow. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that awesome story. That's a great example right there.
So yeah, thanks also for the reminder. I'm gonna like cleanse that one off. Fix that necklace.
Cool.
How do you cleanse them off again?
You can either salt water under the moon is great. It's a simple, great one. Yeah. Or if you
So
don't.
for a situation,
What's
sorry,
that?
for a situation like what Maz just explained, not because you say like once you're done with the prayer or whatever, you can bury it or burn it. Like, can she still wear that necklace, or is that
Yeah.
a necklace that you want to bury and get rid of, or how
No,
do you go about
great.
that?
Yeah, great question. Once you clean it off, no worries. It's free of what, but make sure it's cleaned. That you feel like it's cleaned off. You can use it again is after you've cleaned it off for sure. Some practitioners might say differently, but I feel clear about that. Like when I know something's clean, it's clean. If I'm not sure it's clean, it's not clean.
I have a question, Isis.
Uh-huh.
What if you're going in salt water every day in the ocean, and you're wearing the sigil? You have it embedded in your necklace.
Yeah, you're fine because if as long as you're not if you're intending to clean it off and like leave
Okay.
it out in salt water all night, but if you're swimming with it and everything like that and you're still giving it life force energy to project its offering, you're good. But if usually the cleaning off is connected to the intention to cleaning it off and letting it sit all night for that purpose. And then picking it back up and knowing clearly if it's clean or not clean. And that's a great, and I just want to bring that forward one more time too, is like, we all have that power we feel when something's clean or not clean. It's just letting if we have any doubt, then it's not. It's kind of that simple. If there's any uncertainty.
I just had a vision of like if it was going to be a prayer for nature, like a prayer for the forest or a prayer for the ocean, would it be appropriate to go into somewhere that like no one else would see it and like make like a natural altar of a sigil? Like if you did a prayer for the cedars and you went into the woods and took like cedar branches and organized them in the sigil and then left it there like just for the woods, would that be all right? Or just do you want to like destroy it after some time or just leave it for nature?
I feel like if your heart is in the right place and you feel like it's an offering that is clean and clear from you, and that it will decompose. It's not like plastic or anything like that, obviously, that it will decompose as a beauty offering, and you're in a clear state when you do it. But if there's like we know when we're clear and when we're not clear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've actually done that, and not with cedar particularly, but with the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's really like actually in Oman, I made a sigil for Lilith in the desert, and it was like clockwork. I made the sigil in the desert, and then like I don't know how it felt like for like timelessness. The wind came, and I just watched the wind take the sigil. And I recorded it on video, tripping out. I was like, Mark and Sage were with me, and we were watching the wind remove the sigil.
Wow.
And it was like, so like,
cool.
That's a great example of like the land, I feel like it receives it if the heart's in the right place, which, we're obviously where you're coming from.
Cool.
So yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. What's that?
What do we do with the ones that we crossed out and everything? Can we just throw that out, or
Yeah. bury it or burn it, or as long as it's not visible in your journal. Like you can like just scribble out entirely just so you can't see it again. Is fine, but then if you feel like you're not able to scribble it out entirely, then you can bury it or burn it.
Okay, and I did it about someone. So do I need to then now ask permission because I just did a sigil of them?
If you're gonna project it, yeah.
Okay, and what if they're not really about these kind of things?
You could say, I made an offering for you that I'd love to meditate with, you know, or like something like that, like languaging that is also essentially what it is.
Or prayer.
Or prayer,
Just say
yeah. I
prayer
made a
for them.
prayer for you that I'd love to keep praying with.
All right, yeah, they are not the type of people that believe in prayers.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever language that you feel there's a shared understanding there.
Got it.
Whatever language works, yeah. Now, some traditions are not do not agree with burning too. You know, so it's like you have a lot of different lineages and traditions. Where I'm coming from, if one chooses to burn the parts of it, is you're making an offering to the fire that then sends that prayer out into the smoke. So I just want to be clear what I mean by burning. Not burning to dispel, but like to as an offering, and then the fire transforms it into the smoke that is an offering of the prayer. So I just want to be clear about that because there's a lot of different ways to understand burning.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had one last question.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was so beautiful. And if we wanted to keep refining, as you said, like one part of the sigil was really standing out, and I could tell it actually wanted to transform a little bit, then I can do that and just reinfuse it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's a practice that I went through with the Academy of Oracle Arts. I kept refining. It's almost like the sigil itself was refining itself through me. You know what I mean? And my job was just to like tend to it what it wanted, you know.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So I've refined my sigil a bunch of times, but I kind of like seeing the progression that it's gone through, like it's part of its where it came from. What do you feel is the reason why we don't want to look at where it came from?
So then it releases the attachment to its process. And then it doesn't have cords that keep it connected in this way. So the sigil can then just be free to project itself. This is one style. And in that way too, it's almost to the point where we forget, like, we release the attachment towards it so it has its sovereignty in a way to do its offering work. So it's like sometimes like when we pray over food at home and then we like we make a spirit plate and then we offer the food out to the trees on a platter or in the soil. We don't necessarily know where the food's going or how it's going to decompose or if an animal ate it or if Bodhi ate it, the cat. You know, we don't know, but we know that we made that offering and we just let it do its thing and feed and nourish as it needs to.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So once like I have this sigil here, and if I do want to put it in other places, kind of like what Jessica was mentioning, would you bury the ones that you had? I guess would I bury the one in my notebook while I have the other ones active, or do you do that all at once you're finished with all of them? Does that make sense?
Can I try to repeat it to see if I understand?
Yes.
Okay, so with the sigil in your journal, the inquiry is around if you make multiple copies of it to place in different places, do you then bury the original? Is that the question?
Yes, and I guess at what point? Because if you're finished with the original and the other ones are the ones you're focusing on, actually seeing? Is it good to still have it in the journal, or go ahead and bury that while the other ones are active?
I think that's up to you. You know, like if you feel, because ultimately they're connected, but if you're going to make another one for your altar, it's probably good to just free up the one in your journal so you don't forget, really. Because if you're made the one that's for your altar, it's the primary sigil that you're going to be infusing ritually, that then it infuses the other ones you've drawn. It's also a way to just not forget too, you know? You can also energetically close a sigil too. Like I have a sigil book of all these sigils I made for people. Now I didn't burn them or bury them because they weren't necessarily specific prayers that I was setting in motion to tend to. They were more like symbols to honor everybody that I loved. Didn't have a focus of doing anything specific or offering anything specific. They were ways to honor those that I loved. Where, for instance, this particular prayer has a very specific function, offering function and time related to it. So I would definitely want to close this one when it's complete. Does that make sense?
Okay, totally.
Okay, cool. Awesome. It's amazing, 4:53. Okay, so this is one way to do sigil work. There are many. There are ways in which sigils have been used for malevolent reasons. And so it's not to be taken lightly, what we're doing here. It's very deep and humbly empowering and powerful thing to do. So we want to be very careful and mindful of the offering. Oh, careful and mindful of the offerings we're making, and remember that it's an offering. It's an offering, it's a gift, it's nourishment. That's it. It's not to we're not trying to control it or determine, we're not trying to meddle in the elements. The elements are so powerful. We're their little kids, you know? So we're not trying to meddle. We're just making an offering, okay? And then one of the things too with sigil craft, which is super important because it can be so powerful, especially when we're projecting our heart, mind, body, and spirit, it's important that we're in a clear space when we make them, because what's connected inside is connected to it, which is why the meditation is really important to hone in, hone in on for this one we hone in on what our prayer is. But if you're going to make a sigil, like for you, Maz and Laura, when you make the House of Origin sigil, really make sure your higher self's involved and is connected and you're in a clear state, because that's going to be your sigil you project for your offering in the world for however long House of Origins is meant to do its work. So you want that to be clear for the life cycle of it, you know? And then also too, because it's like I said this before, it's like easier to start a mess than it is to clean it up. So if we start something messy, it's going to be a longer process to clean up the mess that we made than it is from the mess that we made from the beginning, than what it took to start it. So I think it's important to remember that. I like to remind myself often. I'm like, whoa, okay, I need to hold on for a moment. You know what I mean? Like, let me just reset. I'm not going to do this right now because I'm going to reset first. And then when I feel clear, then I do. Sound good? All right, so let's just make our final prayer offering here. And as you all know, California can benefit from some prayers right now. So in your closing prayer here, just however you want to do it, but I just want to also say thank you to everybody who has been sending their prayers to California. It's been very, very helpful. It feels like for so many of us here, human and non-human, and just the beauty of faith and the importance of faith, and how trusting in the process and staying present with faith in what the beauty that's coming out of every situation. You know, so that's the medicine, one of the medicines of the Holy Mother, Bina, undeviating faith. So I'm just gonna light a little charcoal here. I guess I work with sage, light a charcoal. You guys want? No, put the cauldron in the middle. So yeah, we're gonna go on mute here. We're gonna make our closing prayer, and then we'll say our chows after. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Oh, nice. Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for your dedication to caring for this earth and these precious lands at this time. Love you all so much, and also always welcoming contributions. For those that have been continuing, thank you. We welcome them. The PayPal's Ouroboros NC at Gmail, and then you can Venmo me directly if you can. And thank you once again. Appreciate you all so much, and blessings. May we keep the prayers going. You know, I talked to one of my elders, Mendahi Bastida, yesterday, and he's been a really great inspiration for me for many years. He works to protect sacred sites. That's like his mission, is to work with different tribes around the world to protect sacred sites. And we were talking on the phone yesterday, and he said and I reminded him actually of what he told me. He actually forgot. And we had a parallel event to the Global Climate Action Summit in 2017, I think. And I said, thank you, Mendahi. You know, one thing you said to me that has really influenced me and still does is you said in these times this is around climate, these climate dynamic, the most important thing we can do is pray, because the pray helps us align our will with the will of the Spirit, and we are connected. We have that intimate relationship with creation that way, in the natural world, and in our physical bodies, and our heart, mind, body, and spirit. I mean, he said it in his own way, but it's like it helps us to come into alignment and see how we're here to serve and be helpful. So I was just thanking him yesterday for that, what he taught me in that way, and it was just really beautiful. So I just want to acknowledge him here today. He's about to go do some really powerful work again around the sacred sites, and so I just want to acknowledge all of our medicine people and elders that are doing that too, because the sites are grids. It's part of a big grid. And so when we're offering like this too, there's a way where it also can move into the grid and support and make offerings to the grid. So thank you all. Love you. Have a beautiful rest of your evening or day.
Love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.